From the outside, Savannah Blake was living a fairy tale. She was the kind of woman who stopped conversations when she walked into a room. Tall, light-skinned, with long waves of chocolate-brown hair and, depending on her mood. She had made a name for herself in the world of social media, flashing glimpses of luxury vacations, curated family moments, and motivational captions that disguised a burning ambition underneath. But it wasn't always that way. Savannah came from modest beginnings. Raised in a small Texas town by a single mother who juggled night shifts and eviction notices, Savannah grew up knowing two things. Poverty was loud and beauty was currency. She learned early that a smile could get her into rooms and silence could keep her there. So she used what she had. Pageants in high school, modeling gigs in college, social media sponsorships once the Instagram wave hit. She was no stranger to spotlight. She just hadn't found the right stage yet. Then came Jamal Rivers. At the time, Jamal was in the prime of his NFL career, a record-breaking running back with a clean image and an even cleaner contract. Unlike most pro athletes, Jamal wasn't flashy. He gave back to his community. He didn't chase women or scandals. He was the kind of man mothers prayed their daughters would marry, and Savannah knew it the moment they met. They crossed paths at a charity gala in Miami. Savannah was working the red carpet as a brand ambassador for a champagne company. Jamal was presenting an award. She made sure he noticed her, and he did. Their romance moved fast. Too fast, some said. In less than a year, Savannah had traded her two-bedroom apartment for a Malibu mansion overlooking the ocean. Engagement photos flooded the internet, followed by a wedding ceremony that felt like something out of Vogue. White orchids, celebrity guests, and a custom Vera Wang gown that cost more than Savannah's entire college tuition. To the world, they were perfect. Jamal and Savannah Rivers. The golden couple. He was the humble hero. She, the flawless muse. Then came the kids. First a boy, then a girl. Social media exploded with baby bump photos, gender reveals, and family portraits that looked too good to be real. And maybe, in some ways, they were. Because behind those heavily filtered snapshots lived a very different truth. Savannah played the role well, doting wife, loving mother, supportive partner, but those closest to her saw the cracks. She rarely looked Jamal in the eye when the cameras weren't on. She flinched when the children cried. Her smile faltered when Jamal talked about retiring from football to spend more time at home. There was a restlessness in her, a hunger that no amount of wealth, status, or affection could fill. She had everything she thought she wanted, and yet it wasn't enough. As Jamal leaned deeper into fatherhood and philanthropy, Savannah leaned out. She missed the rush of attention, the thrill of being desired, the feeling of being the prize, not just a wife or a mother, but a woman at the center of it all. She told herself it was normal, that every marriage has its ups and downs, that she was just adjusting. But deep down, Savannah Blake had already begun plotting her next move. Like the slow turn of a dimmer switch, Savannah started sleeping in later. She'd leave Jamal to handle the early morning chaos with the kids, mumbling something about needing just 5 more minutes. Those minutes turned into hours. She began skipping family outings, birthday parties, school events, charity galas, claiming she was too drained, that she needed time for herself. Jamal, ever patient, chalked it up to exhaustion. Raising 2 toddlers was no small task. Football season was grueling. Maybe she just needed a break. But it wasn't that simple. Behind closed doors, Savannah was rekindling something else. Her appetite for independence, and maybe something darker. She began journaling again, not about love or gratitude, but about dissatisfaction, resentment, regret. She wrote things like, "I gave up everything for this family. What did I really get in return? He's too comfortable. He thinks I won't leave. I'm worth more than this." Jamal never saw those words. He only saw the absences, the cold shoulders, the moments when Savannah looked at him like he was a stranger sleeping in her bed. The breaking point came 6 months after their daughter's 2nd birthday. Savannah began going out more, spa retreats, girls' weekends, influencer meetups that always seemed to involve rooftop bars and filtered selfies. Jamal didn't question it. He trusted her. He wanted her to feel like herself again. But she wasn't just going out. She was meeting with lawyers, quietly, strategically. She consulted with 2 firms, one in Los Angeles, the other in New York, asking pointed questions about alimony, asset division, and custody leverage. She requested copies of tax returns, property deeds, and brand contracts. She built a digital folder titled Freedom Plan. She even started recording arguments with Jamal, baiting him into saying things that could later be twisted into emotional abuse claims. It didn't matter that Jamal never raised his voice. Savannah knew perception was power, especially in court, especially in the public eye. To keep up appearances, she continued posting curated family photos, brunches, beach days, coordinated outfits. But those images were weeks, sometimes months, old. The present was colder, quieter, tense. Jamal sensed the shift, but he didn't know how deep it ran. One night, as they sat side by side watching a movie, Jamal turned to her and asked, "Are we okay?" Savannah looked at him and smiled, a beautiful empty smile. "Of course," she said. "Why wouldn't we be?" If Savannah Blake was ambitious, then Lorraine Rivers was strategic. Jamal's mother had been born and raised in Detroit during the 1960s, where survival meant staying sharp. She watched friends lose everything, homes, marriages, savings, because they trusted the wrong people. That lesson clung to her, even as her son rose to fame. When Jamal signed his first NFL contract, Lorraine flew to meet him in New York. She brought two things, a Bible and a manila envelope. Inside the envelope were documents, blueprints for a family trust, contracts for asset transfers, and a list of the best estate lawyers in the country. "Son," she said, placing a hand on his shoulder, "fall in love with your heart, but protect yourself with your head." Jamal had laughed then. "You really think I need all this?" Lorraine looked him dead in the eye. "I think you're about to become a millionaire with a target on your back." So Jamal followed her advice. Before he ever married Savannah, he moved all major assets, the Malibu mansion, the beach house in Florida, 3 luxury vehicles, and even his Nike endorsement residuals, into a trust under Lorraine's name. The trust couldn't be touched in divorce proceedings because technically, Jamal didn't own any of it. On paper, he was just a man with a modest salary and 2 kids to raise. Savannah, meanwhile, had no clue. In their early years, Jamal had kept everything open. He gave her access to credit cards, bought her anything she asked for, and never made her feel like she wasn't part of their wealth. But financial freedom and financial control were 2 different things, and Savannah was blind to the difference. When she'd occasionally ask about paperwork, Jamal would shrug and say, "It's handled. Don't worry about it." And she didn't. Not until she started making plans. When Savannah's lawyer began digging through Jamal's records during her secret consultations, they were shocked. The man had nothing, at least not on paper. His personal bank account was a drip compared to the waterfall she expected. No real estate, no holdings. Even the cars were leased through the trust. She thought it had to be a mistake, some kind of fraud. But it was airtight, perfectly legal, perfectly binding. Savannah's imagined windfall crumbled overnight. She hadn't married a millionaire. She'd married the illusion of one. And illusions don't pay alimony. The realization hit her like a slap across the face. Years of marriage, 2 children, a flawless public image, and she would walk away with nothing more than what Jamal allowed. No beachfront property, no luxury vehicles, no monthly support checks fat enough to keep her in designer heels and gated communities. That's when her ambition turned into something darker. Not just anger, not just bitterness, but a burning, corrosive sense of entitlement. She didn't just want out of the marriage anymore, she wanted revenge. Savannah didn't cry when she filed for divorce. She didn't tremble, hesitate, or even blink. She walked into the office of Brandon Tiller, a top-tier divorce attorney known for winning big settlements, and placed her carefully prepared folder on his desk. Inside was everything. Marriage license, children's birth certificates, documentation of Jamal's career timeline, and even a printed spreadsheet of projected alimony and child support based on his estimated income. Brandon flipped through the papers silently. He'd seen women like Savannah before, beautiful, composed, and dangerous when crossed. He knew this wouldn't be a quiet case. "What are you hoping to walk away with?" he asked. Savannah didn't hesitate. "The house, custody of the kids, and half of everything else." Brandon nodded slowly, then said, "I'll do my best." That was in July. By September, Jamal had been served, discreetly, while attending a youth football camp. He didn't say much, just stood there, the manila envelope in hand, reading the petition under the sun as children laughed in the background. When he came home that night, Savannah was already gone. She had taken the kids to her sister's in Atlanta for some space. Left a note on the marble counter. This doesn't have to be messy. Let's do what's best for them. But Savannah didn't want peace. She wanted control. Over the next few weeks, she began building a case in the court of public opinion. She hinted at emotional neglect, made vague references to Jamal being overly controlling, and began quietly feeding stories to influencers and lifestyle blogs that painted her as the strong, modern woman reclaiming her freedom from a toxic marriage. Jamal, true to form, stayed quiet. No posts, no interviews, no comments. But behind the scenes, he let his legal team go to work. And that's when the bomb dropped. During their first round of financial disclosures, Savannah was stunned to discover the truth. Jamal had almost nothing in his personal name. Brandon stared at the paperwork in disbelief. Everything's tied up in a trust, his mother's trust. Savannah blinked, confused. But he owns all of it. Not legally, Brandon said. Not technically. Her voice turned sharp. You mean I'm not getting the house? The cars? Brandon didn't answer. He didn't have to. The courtroom proceedings that followed were brutal. Savannah's attempts to claim a portion of Jamal's assets were blocked at every turn. The judge, a sharp, seasoned woman, saw right through her tactics. Savannah's accusations were thin, unsupported. Her demand for full custody was rejected outright. The court saw a father who loved his kids, supported them and had done nothing wrong, and a mother who seemed increasingly unstable. And then, the final blow. Jamal stood in court, looked Savannah dead in the eyes and said, "You didn't want a husband, you wanted a sponsor." The gallery went silent. Savannah sat frozen, her mouth slightly open, as if she couldn't comprehend what was happening. Her image, the poised, composed socialite, collapsed in real time. Her hands shook, her breathing hitched, and for the first time in years, the cameras saw her for who she really was. Not a victim, not a wife wronged, but a woman who had bet on greed and lost. The woman who once graced red carpets in designer gowns now paced court hallways like a caged animal. Savannah Blake was unraveling. Every legal hearing chipped away at the persona she'd so carefully curated. The judge was unmoved by her tears. The lawyers couldn't find leverage. The press, once her biggest ally, had grown quiet. Nobody believed the poised influencer who once sold lifestyle tips on YouTube was a victim of emotional neglect. Inside that courtroom, Savannah wasn't a brand anymore. She was a woman on the verge. It all came to a head one rainy Thursday afternoon. Savannah had been forced to attend a settlement conference with Jamal's legal team. She arrived late, makeup slightly smudged, clutching a Chanel tote like a lifeline. When she walked in and saw Jamal sitting calmly beside his lawyer, sleeves rolled up, reading a folder, something inside her snapped. She started talking before anyone even greeted her. "This is a joke," she said, dropping her coat to the floor. "You're all in on it. This whole system is rigged." Jamal looked up, expression unreadable. Savannah turned to the judge's assistant, raising her voice. "He lied. He lied to me for years, and you're rewarding him. I was his wife." The assistant calmly reminded her that financial trusts were legal. Savannah laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Legal? You think this is fair?" Brandon Tiller, her attorney, reached out gently. "Savannah, don't touch me," she hissed. "You said I'd be taken care of. You said this was a slam dunk." "Because you said he was worth millions," Brandon replied, voice tightening. "But you never checked the paperwork." That was it. Savannah slammed her palms on the table and screamed. Everyone froze. The sound echoed through the corridor. "I gave him everything. My youth, my body, 2 kids, and now I'm supposed to go live in a 2-bedroom apartment and start over?" Brandon swallowed hard. Jamal finally spoke. "No one's stopping you." The silence that followed felt suffocating. Savannah's face crumpled for a moment, but she didn't cry. Instead, she turned to the court assistant and muttered, "I'm not done yet." And that's when everyone realized this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Savannah wasn't going to walk away quietly. She wasn't going to start over. She wasn't going to accept defeat. Somewhere behind that rage, a plan was forming. A plan that would end with blood on the floor. It was a Friday night that would change everything. Jamal had just returned home from a charity event. where he'd been speaking to young athletes about discipline and family. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kids were with Lorraine for the weekend. The nanny had taken the night off. And Savannah, according to everyone, was still in Atlanta. At 11:47 p.m., the neighbor heard a sound, like furniture being moved or a heavy object falling. It was a subtle noise, barely enough to warrant concern. They shrugged it off, went back to bed. By morning, Jamal Rivers was dead. He was found face down in the living room by a contractor scheduled to do routine maintenance. One clean stab wound to the neck, no signs of a struggle, no forced entry, nothing missing. The security system was offline. The backup battery had been removed. Police arrived, puzzled. The murder looked almost surgical. There was no blood spatter beyond the immediate area, no weapon, no footprints. The Malibu mansion was pristine and chilling. It didn't feel like a robbery. It felt like a message. Savannah was notified of his death the next day. She cried on camera, fell into the arms of reporters, told TMZ that her heart was broken. But behind the scenes, investigators already had doubts. Too calm, too camera-ready, too rehearsed. Still, she had an airtight alibi, or so it seemed. The investigation moved quickly at first. Detectives swarmed the estate, gathering data, scouring for fingerprints. They questioned neighbors, reviewed phone logs, and dug into Jamal's calendar. But nothing added up. The security system had been disabled manually. The code had been entered. Someone who knew the house, knew the layout, knew how to avoid the motion detectors. Savannah's flight logs showed she was in Atlanta. Her phone pinged from Georgia Towers. She had posted an Instagram story from a spa that evening. Everything looked clean. Still, Detective Angela Romero couldn't shake a feeling. Savannah was too calm, too polished, too perfect. Angela had been with LAPD for over 20 years. She'd seen grief in every shade. And this wasn't grief. This was strategy. But without physical evidence or a confession, the case was shelved. Savannah went back to Georgia, rebranded herself as a coach for women, appeared on podcasts, gave advice on resilience and moving forward. She wore white, smiled softly, cried when convenient. And all the while, Lorraine Rivers watched and waited. 4 years later, Savannah thought she was safe. She had rebuilt her online following, bought a home outside Atlanta. Her kids were in private school. Life had settled into a careful rhythm. Then came the news broadcast. A local true crime documentary aired a piece on Jamal's cold case. Savannah's face appeared, frozen mid-sob from the funeral footage. Mrs. Claudia Dent, Jamal's former housekeeper, sat alone in her living room watching it. And something clicked. The face Savannah wore in that interview, she'd seen it before. The same expression Savannah wore when she lied about firing the nanny. The same face she made when telling Claudia to keep quiet about the safe. It wasn't sadness. It was performance. Claudia called the police the next day. She told them Savannah had come by the mansion unannounced the week before Jamal's death. Asked about the locks, the cameras, the security panel hidden in the garage wall. Odd questions. Until that moment, no one had known about that visit. The new lead reopened the case. With Claudia's statement, Detective Romero obtained a warrant to re-examine the crime scene. Using new forensic tools, ones unavailable 4 years earlier, they found something extraordinary. A partial fingerprint on the interior of the detached power panel, hidden behind the hedges. Savannah's. It was the break they needed. A surveillance team was placed on her home. After 2 weeks of observation, she was picked up at a small cafe in Atlanta, wearing all white, ordering green tea. She didn't resist. She didn't ask why. She just said, "Let me finish my tea." That moment went viral. The woman once hailed as an icon of elegance now sat in a beige holding cell, staring at the wall like it owed her an apology. And still, no tears. 2 years into her sentence, Savannah gave a prison interview. The reporter expected denial, anger, maybe even remorse. What she got was far worse. Savannah leaned forward, voice low, and said, "Jamal wasn't even their real father." The room fell silent. "You mean," the reporter began. Savannah just smiled. "He never knew. That's the real tragedy, isn't it?" DNA results confirmed it. The children, both raised by Jamal like his own, were not biologically his. The betrayal wasn't just financial. It was emotional, total. The clip aired that night. And America turned. Public opinion collapsed like a house of cards. Savannah became the symbol of betrayal. Talk shows slammed her. True crime specials aired weekly. Hashtags trended. Justice for Jamal, Savage Savannah. The influencer deals were long gone. The coaching business shut down. Podcasts deleted her episodes. She was poison. And yet she said nothing. No apologies. No interviews. No court appeals. Lorraine won custody of the children. She enrolled them in therapy, kept Jamal's memory alive with bedtime stories and photo albums. They knew their father as a hero. Even though he wasn't their biological dad, he was the one who raised them, loved them, protected them, even in death. Savannah Blake now sits in a maximum security prison in Georgia. She is 34 years old. She spends her days reading romance novels and avoiding eye contact. Inmates call her Hollywood. Some admire her looks. Others hate her for what she did. She rarely speaks. But sometimes, at night, guards say they hear her talking to herself, whispering the same sentence over and over again. He never should have outsmarted me. The mansion is gone. The fame is gone. The followers are gone. Only the story remains. A story of beauty, betrayal, and blood. A story that proves even the most perfect life can end in darkness, if built on lies. Jamal Rivers deserved better, and the world will never forget it.